going to talk you through what I normally do when I'm going into my hives to do a bee check. So once I'm suited and booted, I carefully remove the strap that secures it together, remove the lid, and then using my hive tool, I carefully remove the top board. And then this is actually a queen excluder to stop the queen coming up. We remove this as well, very carefully, as the queen could be on the underneath of this. And is usually secured with propolis, so just being very careful. Keeping an eye to see if the queen is on here. I definitely need to clean the comb off this before putting it back on. Now that I'm in the hive, I'm going to start going through each individual frame, checking for certain things. I'll start from the back of the hive, which is where I'm stood, and head towards the entrance, which is opposite on the right hand side of the screen. The first couple of frames, once I've checked that the queen is not on them, I usually put to one side just to give me room to move the other frames along so they're moved away from the entrance. So you can see here I'm just taking the frames out individually, very carefully, as the bees do move around and tend to get in the way of your fingers, but taking them out and then checking each frame to see if I can notice the queen. I do also keep an eye out to make sure that there are eggs being laid, or if there are larvae or brood on the frames, and if there are any stores. So with each frame I'm checking for if eggs are being laid. You can see in the centre of this frame there are sealed cells. Now these will be bees that are past their larva stage and will be transforming into full adult sized bees. Around them will usually be larvae, which isn't capped yet, and eggs as well will be on the further outskirts of this frame. On the even further outskirts there may be a few stores to help raise those young as well. This was filmed back in May, which is the usual month that colonies tend to want to swarm. So they do usually leave us a few signs that give us a rough idea of when they're planning on swarming. And that is usually by leaving queen cups. Now these usually turn into queen cells. I've just noticed a couple on this frame here. They're just at the bottom here, 2 of them. And I'm going to knock them down. They didn't have eggs in them, so they aren't what we call charged queen cells. If it was a charged queen cell that had an egg laid into it, that would mean that it would turn into a queen, and we would therefore either need to remove the frame with that cell on to do an artificial swarm, or we would need to remove the queen herself to do an artificial swarm to ensure that we kept both colonies, the new one with the new queen and the old one with the old queen. Seeing as these cells weren't charged, I just knocked them down to give me a little more time. You might notice that as I'm checking all of these frames, I'm going quite slowly. I like to take my time when I'm doing my bee checks. I don't think that it's very practical to be upsetting the colony while you're doing your checks, so slow and steady is certainly more comfortable for them, and it just means that it gives me time to really check the health of the colony and ensure that I don't get stung in the process. Queen honeybees are notoriously difficult to spot in the colony if you're not used to doing it or know what you're looking for. They have longer abdomens than the worker bees. So they are different slightly in shape, but the colour of them is very similar, so they can be very tricky. The queen in this colony isn't marked either, which is why I'm looking for her to mark her. So at this point it is very tricky for me to try and find her amongst the rest of them, especially as we're coming into the summer and the colony is growing in size. So the sooner I find her and mark her, the better. As I get closer to the entrance side of the hive, the frames are usually filled more with honey rather than eggs and larvae. The eggs and larvae tend to be more towards the back of the hive, and the stores of honey will be stored at the front, near where the entrance is. Okay, unfortunately here I've gone through all of the frames and I cannot find the queen. This means I'm going to have to do a second pass to try and find her. So this time I'm going to start at the entrance side and work my way backwards, gradually putting all the frames back in their original places as I go. You can see I've skipped a couple of frames here and heading back to where the brood is. The queen will usually be around the brood, which is usually where a lot of the nurse bees are and where the busier part of the colony will be. So that's probably where I've missed her. There's just been a lot more bees around that area, so she's probably hiding amongst them there, which is why I've skipped the frames that have mainly honey on them for the ones that have eggs and larvae on them. You may have noticed that even though I have my smoker ready, I haven't actually smoked these bees once. Personally, I try and not smoke them if I can help it, as I find it sometimes agitates them even more. And also if I'm looking for the queen in particular, she will usually end up going to the bottom of the hive and being hidden by the others if there is a smoker present. So I try and not smoke them if I can help it. However, obviously if they get particularly agitated, start to sting, or I need to continue to find something or check something, I will then use the smoker, but I do try and avoid it as much as I can. I am actually going to use my smoker at this point, as I can tell that the bees are getting agitated that I'm taking too long. So I'm just going to smoke the frames that I've already checked that I'm pretty sure the queen isn't on, or if she is, I'm just going to have to miss her this time, just to try and calm the colony, so I can actually see what I'm doing. I'm also going to clean up a little bit of the top of the frames here, so I can actually close the hive up properly, and it can be a bit tidier as well. Back to the last frame of the ones left in the hive, and typically it's the last one that I finally spot the queen. So because I need to mark her, I'm going to take my little contraption here, try and gently put her into it. She's very elusive, she does not want to go in here, but I do need her to go in. It's basically just a very gentle contraption that keeps her in there so that I can easily mark her without damaging her. She is last year's queen, so I'm actually marking her green rather than blue, which is for 2025. Green was for 2024. And this just marks the back of her there. And she's ready to go back in the colony. We don't keep her for too long. We just make sure that the paint on her back is somewhat dry and then release her back onto the frame. She'll usually go straight back in, down to the bottom and head to the very, very depths of the hive. Now it's just a case of putting all the frames back in very carefully, especially now that I know that she's probably on this one. Putting the other two frames that I've left out back in as well, and closing it up the same way that I opened it, making sure to replace everything back in the way it was. So that's how I do my bee checks. This colony now has a marked queen, meaning that I'll be able to spot her better next time, and they'll settle down once I've put everything all back together again. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.